Welcome. I'm Lee Cowan, and this is Here Comes the Sun, a closer look at some of the people, places, and things we bring you every weekend on Sunday morning. The 2004 blockbuster movie The Notebook, starring Rachel McAdams and Ryan Gosling, was an adaptation of author Nicholas Sparks' best-selling novel of the very same name. Well, now that beloved tearjerker is on Broadway, and it's a musical. David Pogue caught up with Nicholas Sparks as the curtain went up.
As the end of his life approaches, husband Noah reads from a notebook to his wife Allie, who has Alzheimer's disease. It's the notebook containing the story of their own decades-long love.
Take me back, one day, take me back.
That was a story inspired by my ex-wife's grandparents. They met when they were young, they were separated for years. She meets someone else, she comes back, finds her first true love, and they live long and happy. And then in their final years, age begins to take its toll.
Later in the show, Nicholas Sparks on what each of his books have in common.
So interesting, you say you don't want to repeat yourself. You try to come up with new conflicts, new situations. Are there any common threads that make these novels so successful?
Yeah, I think there's probably three big ones, three common threads. Certainly most of my novels take place, at least in part, in North Carolina, all right? In every story, there are some romantic elements, a love story that forms. And then the final thread is that the ending is generally a surprise.
Then, from a lifelong love story to larger-than-life art installations, artist Thomas Dambo builds sculptures all around the world out of trash to look like trolls. I ventured into the woods to meet Dambo and see his creations.
Giants they are, but gentle ones. They aren't here to terrify, he says. They're here to teach, specifically about the one mistake we humans can't seem to outgrow. Our ever-growing piles of trash.
Everything that I do is showing people that trash can have a value, so that trash doesn't need to be a negative thing that's suffocating our world, but it can be a beautiful thing that we can build our coming world with.
That's all coming up right here on Here Comes the Sun. He's penned 24 bestsellers, but The Notebook just may be author Nicholas Sparks' most renowned work. Already adapted into a successful movie, the love story is now breaking hearts on Broadway. Here's David Pogue.
Every Broadway show has a souvenir stand for things like t-shirts and mugs. But at a new musical, they're selling this.
I guess this is one of the hottest little merch on Broadway, according to articles that I've been reading. It is a tissue box. It's got the logo of the play.
Nicholas Sparks has published 24 romance novels, all bestsellers. They've sold 130 million copies and have been made into 11 movies. But the very first one he published is his biggest seller of all, The Notebook from 1996.
I wrote you every day for a year.
You wrote me?
Yes. It wasn't over. It still isn't over.
The 2004 movie version put young Ryan Gosling and Rachel McAdams on the map and became a romance classic. And now it's a Broadway musical.
Of course, I was here on opening night. It's unbelievable.
You didn't cry, did you?
Yeah, you get a little weepy.
And he's not alone.
Did you cry at all?
From the jump.
Did you cry?
I did. One elegant eye.
You took a curtain call with the cast on opening night. Was that your first time on a Broadway stage?
Oh, yeah. Shoot. It's my first time backstage. I'm looking around like a tourist.
Every version of The Notebook has employed a framing device. As the end of his life approaches, husband Noah reads from a notebook to his wife Allie, who has Alzheimer's disease. It's the notebook containing the story of their own decades-long love.
Take me back, one
That was a story inspired by my ex-wife's grandparents. They met when they were young, they were separated for years. She meets someone else, she comes back, finds her first true love, and they live long and happy. And then in their final years, age begins to take its toll.
Hey, I'm Noah.
I'm Allie.
Is there any shame in hearing this show described as a tearjerker?
I don't mind it. If we are the play that makes you feel things / cry, then there are worse boxes to be in.
Playwright Becca Brunstetter wrote the script, and songwriter Ingrid Michaelson wrote the music and lyrics. I spoke to them on opening night.
Oh, yes, we normally don't wear matching blazers and have this much makeup on.
It's the first time either of them has worked on a Broadway show.
I thought, I can do this. I can figure out how to make people who are going to come with their arms folded unfold their arms, basically.
And then let's all laugh, you know, and kind of combining those two things constantly, because laughter and tears are just so right there next to each other all the time.
In the musical, 3 pairs of actors play the couple at 3 different ages.
From the very beginning, we knew we wanted 3 Allies and 3 Noahs. You can have an older version of a character watching their younger self, especially since we are dealing with memory so much and losing memory and fragmented memory, that having these other versions of themselves on stage were really helpful.
No Nicholas Sparks romance novel has ever included a black main character, but in the musical, Noah and Allie seem to change races fluidly at different ages.
I love you, Allie.
I asked co-directors Michael Greif and Shelley Williams about that.
Race is not the story. You're seeing the spirit of who they are. You're seeing not only their essence, but their experience. And for someone like me who grew up looking at theater through a window and never through a mirror, being able to see myself on stage is powerful.
It grew out of how do we do this in the best possible way, unique, and I think very wonderful casting idea.
Many on the creative team relate deeply to the dementia depicted in the show.
My mom has Alzheimer's, and so when I read the story, it really spoke to me.
I also have a grandfather who had Alzheimer's, so I had witnessed it firsthand. And it seems like pretty much everyone has a grandparent or an aunt or an uncle or a sibling, you know, so it's...
With some form of dementia.
Or yeah.
Does it affect the writing?
Yeah. I mean, all of that is in there from us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Then making love and babies, raising hell and then heaven, to sadness and its joy.
Reviews of the musical have ranged from rave to reserved, but Nicholas Sparks suspects that a story this universal will be critic-proof.
It is a love story. It is a story of young love. It is a story of reunited love. It's a story of everlasting love. It is also a story of memory.
And speaking of eternal themes, remember that box of tissues? Turns out the musical's producers weren't the first to recognize the marketing potential of Kleenex.
30 years ago, when the Notebook novel first came out, this, of course, is what we sent to critics and bookstore owners. And look at this. This was it. We gave them a hanky for their tears.
Oh, come on.
The Notebook and genuine emotion
Yep.
have always gone
You sat
hand
around a
in hand.
handkerchief with the books to the critics. Oh my gosh. It's 30 years now, it's disposable paper, but it's the same idea.
It's the same idea.
Up next, an exclusive excerpt from David Pogue's chat with Nicholas Sparks, something you can only see right here on Here Comes the Sun. Stay with us.
You know, I've heard some amazing stories of the way that these novels have touched people's lives.
As promised, here's more of David Pogue's interview with Nicholas Sparks.
I've heard you say that when you were writing novels these days, you're already picturing the movie.
Yes. Interesting, though, that's prior to writing. So it's a little bit different process, because one of the things I strive to do in my stories is to make them contain threads of familiarity that you might expect, but then be very different. So if you watch A Walk to Remember and then compare that to Dear John, sure, there's a love story, sure, it's North Carolina, but very different stories, very different conflicts, very different endings, very different structures, pacing, voice, even point of view. They differ on virtually every level. So because I strive for originality, and I've had a lot of success in Hollywood, when I'm conceiving a novel, prior to writing word one, I try to make sure that the idea that I'm coming up with will be original in both a novel and as a film. Now, so you throw out ideas, that's good, but I've seen a movie similar. A real easy way to think of that is, I would never do a love story set on the Titanic. Well, why? It's never been a novel. I'm like, well, there's a pretty big Leo DiCaprio film out there in the past, so it wouldn't be original.
Right.
So when you're thinking about it, it's got to be original in both novel and film. And then, okay, now I have the idea, then it starts the novel. I only think about the novel. Okay, boom, now it's going to move to film. Okay, throw the novel away. I'm only thinking about making the best film possible. And in this case, throw the novel and the film away. And let's try to make the best Broadway show possible.
Well, yeah, now when you write, before you conceive, are you going to start having to think, what will the Broadway show look like?
To a certain extent, absolutely. I don't think there's any question about that. I'll want something that's original, that would be original on stage as well.
And then the video game, the podcast, the action figure.
Sure. Yeah, if what I do supports those things, absolutely.
So interesting, you say you don't want to repeat yourself. You try to come up with new conflicts, new situations. Are there any common threads that make these novels so successful?
Yeah, I think there's probably three big ones, three common threads. Certainly most of my novels take place, at least in part, in North Carolina, all right? In every story, there are some romantic elements, a love story that forms. And then the final thread is that the ending is generally a surprise. You don't know you pick up the book, but you don't know if the characters are going to get together, if they want to get together but they can't. You don't know if one of them is going to pass away. You just don't know.
I'm sure you're sick of talking about The Notebook, but it's funny that The Notebook keeps landing on decadal landing. You're writing it in 1994, the movie came out in 2004, and here's the Broadway show in 2024. Is there something unique to The Notebook's massive success other than it was your first one?
Yeah, well, thank you for saying that. Yeah, I get asked, what is it about that story? And of course, obviously, the answer is, I can't answer that question. It's really up to the reader or the viewer or the member of the audience. What is it about that that's meaningful? We have some ideas, right? Is it the passion? Is it the love story? Is it the unconditional love? Is it something, an innate human desire to be loved no matter what, even if things are awful? I think there's a universality to all these feelings. Most people fall in love. And of course, most of us have relationships that have spanned, decades, whether it's with our spouse or our partner or our siblings or our parents. And they've kind of been there for us even when we weren't at our very best.
And what is the fandom like? Is it thousands of emails? Is it people stopping on the street?
Yes, it is. I think my largest signing I did, it was 17 hours. I think it's about 6,000 novels. That's aside from very brief bathroom breaks. It was 6,000 novels, signed 6,000 books in 17 hours. And it's wonderful to meet them. I've heard some amazing stories of the way that these novels have touched people's lives, and it's extraordinary.
Up next, from trash to troll. Welcome back. Artist Thomas Dambo has built more than 100 wooden sculptures from reclaimed materials in 17 countries, all of the misunderstood troll. His mission? To show people just how much beauty can actually be found in the abundance of trash all around the world. And I was fortunate enough to watch him work.
Historically speaking, trolls get a pretty bad rap. They're often depicted as ugly and brainless, with big noses and fat bellies. They are mythical beings that have now gone the way of the fire-breathing dragon. Or have they? If seeing really is believing, what are we to make of this? What about her? What about him?
He is a happy troll, but he is also a really serious troll because you need to take responsibility, and that's why he's pointing, you. Is it your fault, or are you one of the good guys or one of the evil guys?
Oscar the Bird King is a fairy tale that was just coming to life when we visited these woods on Vashon Island near Seattle. His architect, Danish artist Thomas Dambo, wanted to craft this 10,000-pound creature to be both imposing and inviting.
He felt a little bit too human before. He needs to have the trolley and the big branches and the fur and the big beard, and because I don't want people to think it's like human.
Right. Nope, he looks like a troll now, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Oscar isn't the first, nor will he be the last. Dambo has built more than 100 trolls in 17 countries, and no two are alike. Each has its own story. Like Mr. Jack Lumber in Denmark, Hector El Protector in Puerto Rico, Anna of Green in Germany.
His Way of the Bird King project is one of the latest in a series of troll sculptures he's been commissioned to build here in the U.S., which includes Benny the Beard Fisher in Michigan, Rita the Rock Planter in Colorado, Pia the Peacekeeper in Washington State.
Giants they are, but gentle ones. They aren't here to terrify, he says. They're here to teach, specifically about the one mistake we humans can't seem to outgrow. Our ever-growing piles of trash.
Everything that I do is showing people that trash can have a value, so that trash doesn't need to be a negative thing that's suffocating our world, but it can be a beautiful thing that we can build our coming world with. And a pile like this, that's a dream come true. This is like a regular toy store.
Yep, his trolls are mostly made from recycled wood. Scraps that might otherwise end up in a landfill or just be burned. Discarded shipping pallets are his favorite. A typical troll needs about 5 tons of them.
The world is running out of resources and we're drowning in our own trash. And those two things, they are each other's solution. And that's what my art is about.
Dambo's been dumpster diving ever since he was a kid in Denmark. He says he's always had a peculiar interest in what other people would throw away and how he might repurpose it.
You can build anything out of anything if you're just creative.
So, why trolls? Well, Dambo says trolls have always been protectors of our forests. And to create these giant guardians in the woods out of material that used to be forest itself, he hoped would send a powerful but accessible message.
Do most people get it?
And most people get it, and people, they want to be a part of something fun and something beautiful and a positive change. Pretty much everybody want to be a part of that.
That's why everywhere he goes, he enlists armies of local volunteers to help. Like longtime Vashon Island resident Greg Martin.
What have you gotten out of this whole experience personally?
Just an expansion for all of us to look at a different way of doing stuff, a different way of looking at stuff.
Martin will remain as one of Oscar's many caretakers when Dambo and his team move on and leave Oscar behind.
I'm okay that they don't last forever. That's the beauty of wood. It grows out of the ground and it decomposes just straight into the ground again.
But perhaps more than anything, what Thomas Dambo hopes you'll take away from his not-so-trashy trolls is the journey to find them. Some he flat out hides, giving only a few clues to where his fans can find them. But it's in that, he says, that his trolls show their true magic, luring us humans out into the woods where there's just the wind and the whispers of nature. That's when he says his trolls speak the loudest.
I think it's good to remind people that there is soil and sun and water and trees, and that's a big joy for me to give that to people.
All troll tales do have an element of truth. So the next time you're out in the woods, look up at what might be looking down on you and find out just what you believe. I'm Lee Cowan. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you right here next time on Here Comes the Sun.